So, unsurprisingly, it is Canelo Alvarez who comes away the victor of his middleweight showdown with Daniel Jacobs. He gets two scores of 115-113 and one of 116-112, which is what I scored it for the Mexican. 8 rounds to him, 4 rounds to Jacobs. A lot of people, though, feel this is potential draw material, and if I'm to believe what the Sky Sports broadcasting team said, apparently Juan Manuel Marquez, the great Mexican, had it 1 round to Jacobs. I can't see that, though. I really put this fight in the close but clear category. I think Canelo dictated too much for basically the first half of the fight. Arguably, the first 7 rounds all go to him. And then he had a pretty good finish as well, I think, to secure the decision. Now, I saw a Jacobs who was too hesitant in there. Where was the fire and the assertiveness we saw in the build-up, certainly in the weigh-in? If he was going to have a look, just leave it to the first round, then get stuck in. But for the first 3 or 4 rounds, and he acknowledged this himself, he was finding it hard to time Canelo's rhythms. He basically wasn't really participating, looking at him too much, and giving away too many rounds. He was getting a little bit hypnotized by Canelo in there, who's always very well poised. As we know, defends very well. There's some great head movement by him, particularly in round 4. But even still, even if you're not landing, get him working, get him working. We know one of his main cons as a fighter is his stamina. And he did have that slump later on, but you could have been more emphatic by just making him work more. Andre Rozier, who I really do rate in the corner, was telling Jacobs, he was saying you're staring at him too much. He says you need to jab up and down, so he needed to jab to the body, which he hardly did. Almost reminiscent of the way Golovkin wasn't going to the body against Canelo. Now, Canelo fights quite lent over with a high guard, and we know he counters with uppercuts and hooks, so naturally you're hesitant, but you've got to be willing to take those risks. Particularly if you're in Jacob's situation where you know you're up against it in terms of getting a decision, you've got to get stuck in, you've got to try and force your own pace and psychologically change what's going on in there. It still turned into a good fight as he came back, as Canelo naturally went into that bit of a stamina slump that he always has. But he came back, he picked good shots, and he was the rightful winner. It was good to see Jacobs, who seems like a top dude, was very gracious. But where he goes now is very hard to say. Obviously, he's finding it hard to make the weight. He's probably going to go up to super middle. Maybe he could fight our Callum Smith, who's a bit of a loose end at the moment. But it's hard to see him getting a really big chance again. He needed to really start this fight assertively and try and use his range and stamina, which is one of the things he has over Canelo. But again, I think he just got a bit hypnotized. He got a bit sucked into Canelo's boxing. It was too tit for tat, and that favors the more accurate counterpuncher. As for Canelo, he could face Demetrius Andrade and get his WBO belt, but there's going to be that push for the Golovkin rubber match. Now, Golovkin apparently said he thought this fight was boring between Canelo and Jacobs, but personally, a third fight between Canelo and Golovkin, for me, isn't that exciting.